And we're
Oh,
live.
we're live. Uh, let's go ahead and just jump right in. If you don't get here right away, you won't hear the introduction, but you'll probably live with that. I am Michelle Teheux. I write Untrickled as my primary Substack. I also write the indie author, but today, and always on this show, we're more or less talking more about the financial stuff. So more of the Untrickled side. And with me today and every day or every Thursday, Allison Tate, can you introduce
Sure.
yourself?
Every day in thought and spirit, but every Thursday actually live. So I'm Allison Tate, and I write the Substack called Inheriting Inequality. And I am interested in all of the things that we inherit and also how inheritance creates inequality. And there's lots of different types of equality, just like there's lots of different kinds of inheritance.
That is true. I was thinking actually just earlier that people who have suffer from inequality in one part of life might have privilege in another. We're all kind of a mix. Um,
Mhm.
that's something I write about fairly often. So
Yeah.
I'll probably leave it alone here because we've decided we would talk about delayed gratification. I
Yep.
should have brought a bag of marshmallows.
I was gonna say, I looked this morning when I was putting up a little note. I was looking for pictures of marshmallows because
If I thought ahead, I would have bought some marshmallows. I'm not a big marshmallow fan. I would have no problem
I,
turning down the marshmallow, but if you're wondering why we're talking about marshmallows, there was a famous study called the marshmallow test, and I'll sum up the version I heard first of all, which was they tested children to see would they take the marshmallow with the
Mhm.
understanding that if they didn't take it right away, they could have a second one later, and they
Mhm.
found that poor kids took the marshmallow and better off kids didn't. And that was supposedly proving that some people just don't understand delayed gratification, and that's going to make them poor in life. But
Yeah.
then they redid the marshmallow test. I just learned just before we went live, and Allison is going to tell us what they found out.
Yeah. So the original one, like you said, exactly what you said, and I think it was in the 1960s, like mid to late 1960s, and I think it was conducted by a guy who was out of Stanford, and they gave preschoolers a choice, right? One marshmallow now, or two if you waited 15 minutes. And they kind of like followed up with those kids who waited the 15 minutes and took the 2, and they were like, "Oh, they were so successful. Oh my god, they got these great SAT scores." It's actually funny that the ones that were listed, higher SAT scores, better stress management, fewer substance abuse issues, lower BMI, like all of these were considered to be positive outcomes if they could wait the 15 minutes. They thought, "God, these other ones, they just couldn't even wait 15 minutes. No wonder their lives are terrible."
It's
Uh,
all because they can't control themselves around
because they
marshmallows.
had no self-control. So it turns out in 2018, they did basically a replication of the marshmallow test. And what they found, which probably doesn't surprise anybody, was if you accounted for a child's socioeconomic background, the link between delayed gratification and later success basically disappeared. Um, so the reason that these kids were successful, right, there was correlation, but not causation. They were successful not because they waited and took the 2 marshmallows. They were successful because they had parents who, made them, play tennis, or they had parents who had SAT tutors for them, and all of the other things that make you successful in those particular kinds of ways. And they just didn't account for that in the first test, and we're just wowed that some kids with certain socioeconomic backgrounds just were better at waiting for the 2 marshmallows. And you mentioned, Michelle, also there, I mean, there's another factor here which also seems to be something to account for, which is just it's a perfectly rational decision making if you haven't ever had a lot of marshmallows to
Mhm.
take the marshmallow.
Take the marshmallow while you can. They might take it away.
Yeah, like
And especially if you're a kid who, I'm thinking in the 1960s, a marshmallow was maybe a little bit more exciting than now. I'm
yeah.
guessing. But um, I can just imagine that if you haven't had a lot of treats,
Mhm.
I think it's very fair to say that treats were less ubiquitous back in the 60s than they are now. I mean, we're surrounded by treats at all times now. Even if you're poor, you can have a bag of marshmallows without a problem. But when I was a little kid, we didn't have a bunch of treats around the house. And marshmallows don't particularly tempt me, but some other treat would. I could see myself taking the marshmallow as a
Yeah.
small child.
I mean, like
But
I said, it's like, first of all, you don't know if you're actually gonna get that second first, it just seems great, like, you're like,
that
"Yes, thank you for
marshmallow,
bringing the marshmallow." Also, you may not trust that
um,
you're gonna get the second marshmallow. I
you
mean,
might have been told you might have been made promises before, like,
yeah,
"Yes, honey, get you a bike this summer. Oh, sorry, daddy lost his job." You may have learned, like, you better take what you can while you get.
yeah,
Mm. So
exactly. I think you're like, it's assuming a trust in the person or the institution that's gonna give you that second marshmallow, and if you have been through experience, learned a mistrust of that marshmallow granting institution, right? Like, you're gonna take the one and you're gonna look at the other kids and be like, "You're dumb. Like, how do you know you're gonna get the second marshmallow?"
there probably were times that you didn't take while the getting was good and you didn't get anything. I mean, that's a lesson you learn early when you're poor.
Mhm.
So it reminds me of, we'll go from marshmallows to tattoos.
Yeah.
Years ago, I knew this woman that she and her husband were pretty financially comfortable, but the rest of his family was not comfortable at all. So he had 2 brothers who lived together, and, my friend's husband frequently had to bail them out. They'd like, "Can we have some money? Our electricity is gonna get cut off if we don't pay it by this time." There was always something, and, my friend, it's not that she was mean about it, but they had little children, they were having babies, they had expenses, and she's like, "I would kind of like to have all this extra money for our family. Why
Mhm.
can't your brothers pay their own power bill? They're not making good financial decisions for themselves." So one day after once again, the mother called and, guilted them into like, "Your brothers need $500 because of blah, la, la, la." And so they paid it, and then the 2 brothers show up the next time they see them, and they both have fresh, very detailed, very expensive tattoos. And my friend lost her cool, let's say. She lost her cool, and she just finally had had enough, and she said to the brothers, "We just paid all this money to take care of whatever problem, and here you guys have spent all this money on these tattoos. Why would you do that?" And their answer, I don't approve of it, but it makes sense. They said, "Well, you don't get money very often. When you've got it, you've gotta enjoy it."
Mhm.
And that wasn't like, "Let's put it aside because the power bill is gonna be due next month too." It was, "Let's get tattoos. We'll have them forever, and if we don't do it now, we may never have this extra money again." I
Mhm.
mean, it does make sense how you could get to that point.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a lot of, I think there's a number of things. So when I think of delayed gratification, I think of it as like basically a disciplinary tool.
Mhm.
And that's certainly how it's used, I think, with kids, right? Like, if you just behave, I'll give you something. Right?
Yeah,
Like,
and it works on adults too.
and it works, yeah, I mean, it's the same principle in where, this idea of, "Oh, work hard and you'll get something," or "Save up and you'll get something," or just be nice and I'll give you a raise." Uh,
Mhm.
it's the same thing, it's a disciplinary tool. So I'm a little skeptical of it always in that sense, in the way that I think in, like, a larger political sense, it's still a discipline. So I'm a little and I also
Yeah,
think it comes with a lot of, like, unnecessary well, most moralizing is unnecessary, but it comes with a lot of, like, judgment in it, right? That you couldn't wait or you didn't wait or, and the judgment I think is, like, needs to be tempered.
well, and I say this as someone who has been an aunt my whole life. Save the money, don't go out to eat, don't buy the new thing, stay home and just, turn down the heat in winter and be cold to save some money, eat the beans and rice.
Mm,
Uh, that's how I have lived most of my life, and oftentimes it's because I had to. It's not that I did that, now I've got $1,000,000. It's that I did that and the lights didn't go off.
right.
But I have reached the point of thinking that maybe I wanna change that about myself and do a little bit of grasshoppering.
Mhm.
'Cause how long am I gonna live, you know? I mean, I don't have any reason to think I'm gonna die momentarily, but I know I'm not gonna live forever. And at what point am I gonna enjoy my life? Because I would hate to be 90 years old and think, "Okay, finally, I think I can take a day off,"
Yeah.
and then drop dead the next day, and that could happen.
So in terms of delayed gratification, what are some things if you're thinking, like, "I'm gonna stop working on that model, I'm gonna start, making my gratification happen sooner." What are things that you want to have
Well,
gives you
I talked last week, we were talking about luxuries that I shouldn't say blue, see, this is really actually very hard for me, that I had bought, a pair of Doc Martens boots,
Mhm.
something I wanted for ages, And it's not exactly a crazy purchase. I mean, they are very high quality boots. They should
Yeah.
last me the rest of my life. And, they're like they're kind of like the type of thing that I like to wear. They're like an old working class boot, and it's also kind of a punky boot, and I'm kind of a working class punk. I You probably don't think that, but you guys don't know everything about me. Yes, I love punk rock. I mean, I love the idea that I'm walking around with these Doc Martens. I feel very cool.
Yeah,
I know I'm not really cool, but I feel really cool.
that's all that matters.
So I would never have bought those at
Mhm,
most of the points in my life because I would have thought, "No, no, 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 you can't afford that. That's a waste. That's not for you. You need to get the cheap boots."
mhm.
I managed to buy the boots. I dithered about it for 6 months, but I did finally manage to do it.
And they look great, I'm just gonna say. They look
I absolutely
fantastic.
love them. I feel like everybody's like, "Look at those cool boots." Then nobody's noticing my boots, but in my mind,
And you have
they
an
look
espresso
amazing.
machine, we learned that too the last week.
I stuck my foot up and showed everybody my boots.
And we have an espresso machine. So what other things do you wanna, like, do to stop living in a pattern of delayed gratification?
One thing is that my husband and I need to really enjoy each other. We All we do is work, and, again, I've mentioned before, I think that we live in a fixer-upper old house. There's
Mhm,
always something to be done, and we've always got a very good excuse for not doing the fun thing to stay home, like, "We should probably peel off that wallpaper. We should probably, patch that plaster and put up
mhm,
the paint," or, "We should save the money because that downstairs bathroom needs to be gutted," and it does, it really does. But we don't wanna spend the money, we don't wanna spend the time, we don't wanna just live, and we
mm,
really need to do that. His parents have both passed away. He was the youngest of 8, and he is 62, so his parents had passed away years ago, and, he told me that, at one point, his parents always used to talk about this one vacation they'd taken to the United States.
mhm,
He's Dutch, so his parents were also Dutch. And they came over here and visited their American relatives, and they took this wonderful vacation, and they kept saying, like, "We're gonna do that again, we're gonna do that again.
yeah,
But first we're gonna save our money," and they never did it again. Her health declined, and they never got to go again,
mm,
and they all had always wanted to. And my husband has told that story a number of times, and every time he tells the story, we agree, we definitely need to do something fun.
mhm.
Uh, at this point, we've got 3 reasons why we don't travel. One of them just walked into my room. It's my elderly three-legged beagle mix with terrible separation anxiety.
Yeah,
Hello, Cashew. Um,
uh,
we she we can leave overnight at best because my son will come spend the night with her and give her nonstop attention, but she does not like me to even so much as run to the grocery store.
uh-huh,
But, and the other thing is, again, even though his paperwork is all in order and he's a legal resident with a green card and everything else
mhm,
a little bit scary, we're not gonna get on a plane until the times are better
yeah,
politically, and we feel safe as a him being someone with the green card to get on a plane. So we're not getting on a plane, for the next 3 years probably. We'll see what's gonna happen.
yeah. Just wanna
Uh,
know him in the chat, kind of like, I think agreeing with your idea that sometimes it's hard to break the patterns, right, and, like, start spending. Says, "Having grown up poor, the deprivation has made a strong impact or imprint, sorry. Even though I have money, I still have a hard time spending." So that, it's not and
I
I
feel that.
right about that, it's like it's a psychology and it's not necessarily a number. You could have money in your account, right? There's, like, patterns that are, like, like CM says, like, imprinted from a very early age about spending, and they really direct how people spend regardless of, sometimes regardless of, like, what's actually in the bank account.
My son, who he isn't married, he
He's
doesn't have
also a
children.
big traveler. This is Arthur. He loves to travel. He has a little EU passport.
Hi, kitty.
Yeah. He takes Xanax and he has drivers and he goes places. He's a spender.
Your cat has a better life than I do.
He's a better life than, like, most people, honestly. I would love an EU passport. Yeah.
Oh, my son, oh, hi, kitty. The tail is right. That's so
Right
cute.
there. Hi, sweetie.
My son, because he grew up with me as a mother, even he doesn't have a wife or kids to worry about. He has only himself to worry about, and he doesn't choose to be a homeowner. He chooses to rent from me, and I give him I'm not gouging him on rent. He and he's doing fine. He just can't spend money, and he'll say things like, "I know I need to get new jeans and t-shirts, socks, underwear, stuff," and he'll talk about it for like 6 months before he does it. And he doesn't need to make any sacrifices to do it. The money is in his account. There's no reason he couldn't do it.
Right.
He could he could definitely live much, much, much better than he does. He's still driving the same very sensible used older car.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he should do crazy stuff, but
Right.
I've told him, like, why don't you take a trip? You
Mhm.
can afford it. Why don't you take a lovely trip? You could take your mom on a trip. You can
Right.
get some friends together and go somewhere for spring break. Do something fun. He will not do it. He just says it's really hard to spend money. He was the type of kid that always had a bunch of money in his pocket. He
Uh-huh.
didn't wanna spend anything. I'm gonna pick Cashew briefly. She's not gonna like it. Come here, baby. Come here. Come here. This is my very old doggie.
Okay.
She's
Oh,
very
hi.
old. Love her very much,
This
and she does not like me to leave the house. But since your cat got screen time, Cashew has
Yeah,
to.
absolutely. She's lovely and I am sure incredibly clever, both.
Cashew is maybe the
Well,
dumbest dog
Jefferson.
I've ever had.
Yeah.
I've had very smart dogs. My other dog here that's snoozing is very smart. Cashew is by far not the smartest dog I've ever had, but she's very sweet.
And, like, we all have different literacies, right? We all have different skills, as I like to
It's good that Cashew doesn't have to take care of herself.
say. I like it's like they have those memes about pets. It's like, two forms of passive income, a driver, right? A personal chef. Call me for financial advice. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I have to say, so I'm very much like the opposite way. We've talked about saving and spending. Like I'm a spender. I've like always been a spender, and I have a very hard time delaying gratification because I'm just like, well, just a little bit now would be great. And
A marshmallow.
it's very hard. I'm just like, yeah, I would like the marshmallow. And I'm, like pretty much sure that if I like wait a little bit, I could probably convince somebody to give me another marshmallow. I went to law school. I was like, I'm sure there are other marshmallows out there in the world and I will be able to have them. And it's a mindset, right? It's a mindset and an orientation
It's
that
the scarcity versus abundance mindset also. I have a
yeah.
scarcity mindset. It's bred into my bones, and I'm trying to shed it a little bit. I but that by the same token, I am a writer.
Mhm.
Um, I'm not a, stockbroker or something like that. My idea of a splurge is gonna be probably everybody else's normal Tuesday, but I do need to loosen up a little bit,
Mhm.
and, I actually made a purchase today online. It is a cast iron. I've got a regular Dutch oven that I bake bread in
Uh-huh.
because baking bread saves you money and it's also better, but, you can only make a round loaf, which is fine, but I thought, wouldn't it be nice to make a loaf shape?
Mhm.
A lot of people probably would not choose to spend their money on this because cast iron is actually kind of expensive,
Yeah.
and, I think it was like $37,
Mhm.
which again, it's like some of you are like, "Why are you sweating $37?" Well, because that's $37. $37, you know what? That is actually a decent chunk of money. You could do a lot of things with $37. You can't, but you gotta pick one. You can only spend that one time. So, is it going to be getting takeout? Is it going to be stuffing it into savings account? Is it gonna be going toward the bathroom remodeling? Is it
Mm.
gonna be a new shirt? Is it gonna be a cast iron, gizmo that you can make really good bread in?
Mhm.
Oh, this is not a typical purchase for me, but I went ahead and pulled the trigger today because it was on
Yeah.
sale. I've been looking at them for a while. I could have spent much more for one that was, like, enameled and very fancy, like
Uh-huh.
the French ones are just I don't even know how to say it, Le Creuset,
Le
whatever.
Creuset,
That
yeah.
way oh
Yes.
god, they're so gorgeous,
Yeah.
and I would love to have one, but it won't function any better than this non-name brand cast iron one, so
Mhm.
I didn't go bananas, but it was a splurge. To me, that's a splurge. That's a grasshopper, not an ant thing.
I mean, it's not the amount, right? We talked about luxuries last week is the idea of you're gonna spend it now and you're not gonna put it into something. Kind of interesting you mentioned savings, right? So I was thinking, we hear a lot about delayed gratification, and I do feel like it's used sort of as a form of discipline and it's used with all this judgment. Because on the other hand, people like to talk about things like the time value of money, right?
Yeah,
And think about like compounding and all the things that you can do if you have something now. All right. So this is assuming you have things now, but like I think like the whole idea of like, if you invested the money, you're still actually doing something with it. It's not necessarily delayed gratification. I'm not sure, but I feel like there's a it's a disjunction. Is it that goes back to what we were talking about there's a way that, people with not a lot of money are supposed to act, and there's a way of people with money are supposed to act. And if you have money, right, you're supposed to actually invest it now and have it now and try to get it now, because the time value of money means that, like, a dollar now is worth more than a dollar, right, in a week.
Mhm.
Supposed to, like, get it now and invest it, and then it will be worth more. So there's, like, those scripts that are, around investing that say, like, there's some delay involved, but it's also, like, get your money now to invest it. So I don't know. There's a mixed messages, I think.
When we switched from people having pensions to everyone having to fund their own 401k,
Yeah.
and I'm not a financial expert, don't listen to me about investing, but I will say it is a little bit weird that people in middle America like me are being expected to essentially, correct me if I'm looking at this wrong, am I not essentially investing in big business if I
Mhm.
stick money in a 401k? Like, do I have any business doing this? Why would the middle class be providing capital for the wealthy to expand their factory or something like that?
Mhm.
Um, and yes, I may theoretically, hopefully, get something out of that money later on,
Yeah.
but it used to be, like our dads or grandfathers probably worked for some company that put money into a pension. And if
Mhm.
our dads and grandfathers worked for the same person for a long time, they would have an actual pension, a
Yeah.
guaranteed amount of money
Fine
when
bet.
they retired. So that was the corporation investing in the employee. And now it seems like the employees are investing in the corporation. Like, I
Mhm.
have this $50 this month that I put back. I will put it into my 401k.
Mhm.
Here you go, company. You can use this to build a new factory or something. And I'm just trusting you that later on I'll get $60 out of it.
Right?
I feel like I'm loaning money to them. And I'm doing it to the
Yeah.
extent
You're
I can.
helping me get your 2 marshmallows back, right?
Yeah.
You're
I
like, "I'm
gotta
giving
get
you
those
1
marshmallows.
marshmallow and you give me 2 back, and that will be good."
But isn't that a little bit backwards? Shouldn't it be the other way around?
Yeah.
It used to be the other way around.
It's true. We just talked about this in my class this morning about, like, defined benefit pensions and then defined contribution, and then the switch to defined contribution kind of in the '80s, and, how it went to, a much more marketized form of, retirement planning. And very few people get defined benefit anymore, so there's not,
Yeah. Other than, like my ex-husband, was a teacher, so
Mhm,
he had great, he had great, pension or has a great pension because the state of Illinois, but the state of Illinois, excuse me, like many other states, didn't really fund their, pension obligations,
mhm,
and, that seems to be the case in many, many, many areas that we told our government employees that this is gonna be your benefit, and we committed to it, and people took those jobs with that expectation,
mm,
and but they we didn't fund the money, and because I spent all these years as a journalist going to city council and school board and, library board, whatnot meetings, I would always be there for their budget discussions and votes, and I
mhm.
would see that, yeah, you'd have all these different funds,
Yeah.
they would not be funding many times their budget, their pension obligations. And so the state of Illinois put all those off. We had many years when we were really messed up, and we have better leadership, in my opinion, with Governor Pritzker right now, and we're doing much better. But there for a few years, the state wasn't paying for anything. Like if
Mhm,
you had a poor person and was dead, and they had to at least do something with the body,
mm,
they would have a contract with the funeral home, but the state wasn't paying. So the funeral home was like, "We've got a morgue full of stiffs here, and we need to do something halfway dignified with these bodies.
yeah,
State is not paying for cremation or burial or anything. Like, what are we supposed to do? They weren't paying for ambulances. They weren't paying for, I mean, anything that the state normally pays. We were like years behind on everything. So we were not paying our pension obligations.
mm,
And that comes back to bite you in the butt.
mm.
And
I mean, maybe retirement, right, is actually, like, the biggest form of delayed gratification ever.
yeah, we're telling people if you just work hard, you'll eventually be able to
Right,
retire. But
right.
I see a lot of elderly people working as cashiers and things like that.
Mhm,
And, that really kind of hurts my heart when I saw this one older lady working at, the grocery store, and she had the oxygen on her face and a little oxygen tank by her feet. She's standing there ringing up my groceries, and I just wanted to say, like, why is this poor woman on her feet working? Why is she not at home? What what is wrong with us?
And you said, "I know the reason because we have very few social safety net program." I mean,
Yeah,
we talked about money and aging, and we talked about the, number of people who are older, considered elderly to be living in poverty or living in near poverty. And, the delayed gratification of, right, investment or retirement or whatever it is, paying into Social Security, whatever it is, has not been successful.
she may well have been someone who, couldn't keep her hands off the marshmallow and wasted her money when she was young. She also may have been someone who worked very hard her whole life and just never earned much, and
Yeah.
I'd be willing to bet money on the latter, but
And some people never get, I mean, to keep going with the marshmallow, right? Some people never probably got offers of marshmallows ever. So they were not put in a social experiment where they even got the offer. There was like the kid with the one marshmallow, the kid who waited, and there's the kid who like the control group who never got the marshmallow.
I I'd do anything for a marshmallow, but no one will give me one. Yeah,
Right. Exactly. I don't know, I
and
think it's interesting, like, the delayed gratification is also, it seems to have, like, a really moral component because people associate it with self-discipline or just discipline.
yeah,
I mean, there's discipline, but also self-discipline, being able to, like, control yourself and
I don't
having.
even believe in that anymore. I actually think that that's a flawed concept,
Yeah.
and by the way, Substacker Brian, I think it's pronounced Klaus, Klaas, he
Mhm.
writes The Garden of Forking Paths, and I can't remember off the top of my head what his book was. His most recent book, I bought it, and it was freaking great, and it'll basically convince you that, free will may not be as, there may be no such thing.
May not be as
There's no free will, there's not much self-discipline either, which doesn't mean you should just do whatever comes into your life and just run around gratifying yourself all day long in every possible way. But also, it is really weird that, uh, okay, I know I talk about this a lot and I'm obsessed with it, but the GLP-1s can
Mhm.
change so
Right.
profoundly
Yeah.
the idea and like dieting is a diet culture and budget culture have a lot in common, which Dana Miranda, also on Substack, writes about a lot.
Uh-huh.
They're very similar things, and we tell people like, don't eat that marshmallow,
Yeah.
don't eat that cheeseburger, but we also tell them, you know, don't spend that money. And
Yeah.
isn't it really interesting that when you're on a GLP-1, people like me who could not lose weight and tried really, really hard for decades, you start using this medication, and all of a sudden, you have self-discipline to eat less food. Like,
Right.
no, it is not a matter of self-discipline.
Right.
I mean, it was like basically the only thing I ever thought about is don't eat, don't eat, don't eat. Well, don't eat, don't spend, don't eat, don't spend. And I take
Well,
those
I want a
shots.
picture of you, like, wearing your boots, eating something, like, tremendously delicious.
Oh, I would love to take that picture. Um, but yeah, I have the same relationship with food now that my very skinny son, who really doesn't care about food that much,
Yeah.
he'll eat half a piece of cake and wander away and forget it's there, and that would never have happened to me in the past.
Mhm.
Shots it does. It's changed something in my body in a way that I don't think anybody understands, and
Mhm.
it isn't just food.
Yeah.
It also there are a lot of people who had a problem with alcohol, smoking, drugs,
Mhm.
and also, people who, compulsive shoppers. I
Uh-huh.
cannot understand compulsive shopping because to
That's,
me,
like, so
shopping
foreign to
is
your being. Yeah.
but there are people who said that they really had a problem. They'd walk into Target for toothpaste and toilet paper, and they'd come out with new clothes and pair of boots and,
Mhm.
you know, pillows and knew this and knew that, and they'd have, like, hundreds of dollars on they realized one day they went to Target for their toothpaste and toilet paper and walked out with just toothpaste and toilet paper, and they realized, "Wait, I'm not blowing money anymore."
Yeah.
So clearly there's some of this is behavioral, some of it is probably some type of self-discipline, some of it is neurological in a way that we do not really know how to explain.
Yeah. That
So
that helping one's interesting too, though, because we put out a lot of messages about delayed gratification and people shouldn't be, people should have self-control and all these things, and then we blame them for not having self-control, like with food. But we also, right, and I mean, like, not the two of us necessarily, but like we collectively want people to be consumers, right? So
mhm.
want to we want to push them toward, right, shopping and buying and consuming and doing the things, collectively that the government or the corporations want us to do in terms of buying things. So it's interesting, right? Like there's like buy now, but actually like have self control. So we get again a lot of mixed messages around delayed gratification.
I think that our modern Western society has mixed messages on everything.
Yeah.
Again, spend money. We power our entire society basically on advertising,
Hmm.
which is not a good thing. So everybody's pushing people like spend, 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 but we're telling them save, 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 save.
Yeah.
And we do the same thing with we do it with money, we do it with food. We're oh my God, late night advertisements for pizza and
Uh-huh.
candy and whatever, all these different treats. Uh, a lot of people have real trouble with that. And if we really wanted people to like eat healthy, why would we power our society on trying to get people to give in to their temptations? I think I would argue we do it with sex.
Yeah.
We tell young people not to have any sex. Bad things will happen, and they very often do happen if you have sex. But what do? We use sex to sell stuff.
Yes.
So
Every
what do we really want people to do? What do we actually expect?
Yeah, it's like all of the moral messages that we send out about self-control and about, right, like, waiting to eat that whatever it is, or waiting to have sex, or waiting to buy something are completely at odds with, right, the corporate and the capitalist imperative for people to go buy things all the time and to go get that, like, whatever fast food thing you want on the way home, or, like do some online shopping while you're sitting around at night having a, having a nightcap. Like, go buy something. And
We're gonna surround you with temptations, and we're all gonna do everything we can to get you to give in, to make that purchase, to make that spend, to eat that treat,
yeah.
to have sex, because again, that's what we're inundated with it. It's crazy if you start to notice just how much we use sex to sell.
Oh, yeah.
But everybody is supposed to be very moral and resist every single one of these siren calls that are just relentless. Like that really doesn't seem like the best way to organize the society to me.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. And it's again, like, it's all strong mixed messages. I'm curious if, people in the chat too, if anybody has, like, things that they delay buying or things that they use for instant gratification. I think of it as, like, I mean, it's the way to get through the day too, right? I give myself little treats all day long, and I don't know. But I was looking at I was like, to just Google some things, and so I looked at some of the things that Google delayed gratification. And a lot of it, so there was a number of things that came up as common short-term rewards that people try to delay. And the most common were impulse shopping, watching TV, scrolling on their phone, or unhealthy snacks or foods.
Mm.
And those were the most common short-term rewards that people, are like, "Oh, if I do something, then I can."
The little tiny pleasures in life.
Yeah. And there's a lot of, and this maybe is a place where delayed gratification, or again, maybe just discipline or self-control. People, there's been so much recently about screen times and people spending time on their phone and scrolling. And I mean, clearly there's nothing good to read, right? And it just like is psychologically difficult to be immersed in like our news cycle. Um, so there's a lot of sort of like delay. I don't know if that's delayed gratification or if it's just teaching people to think not in short-term windows, or
Well,
a lot around that too, and self-control, right?
hi, kitty cat again. Little tail flopping around. I came from a newspaper background. I worked in print newspapers most of my career, and ended it with being the editor of a daily newspaper. And the news cycle has obviously changed a lot. It used to be we went to press every day. When I f- at one point the press time was like a little bit before 11. We would try to hit the. We were an afternoon paper at that point, so we would try to hit the newsstands in time that people could maybe look at the paper over lunch, or they'd read it when they got home. But our goal was to have people be able to read it while they were going out to lunch and things like that.
Uh-huh.
So that was like if the news occurred 5 minutes after you went to press, you had to wait 24 hours to report it.
Yeah.
This, I mean, pre-internet. And people forget that you used to wait to hear about news. Now you would hear about it if it was big enough news, you would hear about it on the TV or radio, even perhaps before that. But you wouldn't get like the full story available to you, probably a full in-depth story
Yeah.
for maybe 24 hours. And that's unthinkable now. So in 24 hours, you got time to get some context.
Right.
And the other thing is you are used to imbibing your news. every day, every morning. Most people had a morning newspaper, and we eventually went to morning. But
Mm.
so it's at one point during the day, you would get accustomed back in the day. You're going to catch up on all the news. You
Yeah.
would do the paper, and then you would put the newspaper in your well garbage because you didn't recycle back then, and that was the end of your news. You
Yeah.
might watch the news at night, but if you go back in time just a little bit more, that newspaper was all you had,
Very funny.
and then you think about it again.
I remember there being like a particular because I used to love when it first came out, I loved West Wing. And I remember like a particular episode, like it was called Take Out the Trash, but it was like CJ, who is the press secretary, right, was explaining like when you wanted to bury stories, like when you put them out, right? Like explain the whole news cycle. And I don't think we have that anymore. So
Well,
there's
there's such a thing as dropping news like right before a holiday,
yeah, right.
and but I don't think it's as effective now because the other thing is instead of having just like certain staffs of news, you've got all these different people on Substack just looking for something to write about. And it's not a matter of, maybe for 20 years you had subscribed to a newspaper, the same newspaper, and you were already planning to engage with that newspaper for a little while every day. But nowadays, you've got all different sources of news,
Hmm.
and everybody's like, read me. No, watch my video. No, read my thing. No, why my, everybody's like screaming and begging for attention.
Hmm.
So it's not enough to say, here's a sober assessment of the news. It's like, it's a breaking news. This thing has happened. And I think that is really not good for us. And it gives us a feeling of constant dopamine hits of like
Yeah.
finding out what's going on. Everything is presented as you learned it here, you learned it first here. I just don't, I think that's a little bit like a marshmallow. Instead of like waiting and having your news marshmallows once a day, you're getting little marshmallows all day long.
I mean,
And
the
nobody's
news, yeah, the
stressed.
news cycle, right? Like all cultural, like production news cycle, it's like complete and perpetual instantaneous gratification. Right.
I cannot really see the,
Yeah, so there's 2 so this is actually interesting. So Sam says in terms of, like, things that, they don't hesitate to buy. I have one thing I don't hesitate to buy too much of, and that's books. That's, like, 100% my mom. She, like, is the worst shopper ever. Like, she hates shopping for food. She hates shopping for clothes. She hates shopping for everything. She buys I mean, all sh books is all she buys, and she cannot go into a bookstore without, like, coming out with, like, t 10 things.
tell your mom about me.
I would everything else, I'll be like, "Do you wanna go?" Like, "Do you wanna go?" She's like, I need sweaters." I'm like, "Let's go shopping." She's like, "Oh, no, let's go to lunch and go get some books."
I
She
love to buy books,
she
and I have
can't
to
resist the book. Other question, do you blog local news on your own since the newspaper folded?
I don't, and everybody locally asks me to, but the thing is, it would be more than a full-time job. This is a relatively smallish town of like 30,000,
Mhm.
30 right around there, and, most of the time we had like 3 full-time reporters, and then there's other there was other sources of news, like sometimes we had stringers or
Mhm.
sometimes we'd have people send us not the news that isn't like breaking news, like community events and things, as time went by, we just have people send that in. Your church is having a cha chicken dinner or that type of thing. But as
Mhm.
far as, like, if you're gonna cover things like your city council, new businesses, the cops and courts keeps one person busy, right, full time.
Yeah.
I would basically and I know people who have tried to do this, and they've all had to give up because you can't make money doing it. If you're trying to do it yourself, you'll run yourself ragged and you won't make any money because it we used to have advertising, display advertising and classified. If you go back pre Craigslist killed the classified advertising. You used to, if you wanted to if you wanted to sell your sofa or car, or you wanted to look for a job, you'd look at the classifieds. And Craigslist got rid of those, but everyone's like, "Oh, you can do it free on Craigslist." Yeah, but Craigslist
Personal
is
ads
not.
too, right? They used to have personal ads.
Oh, yeah. But
Yeah.
you know what Craig didn't do? Craig did not cover your city council meeting. He didn't, like, cover your local high school sports. He didn't do anything. He just made billions of dollars. Like, well, thanks, Craig. You were one of the big blows that happened to, like, ruin local news. But we still had display advertising for a little while, but that all went away, and not only because of the internet, but another thing was, if you look at how many local stores your local Walmart replaced. You used to have like a camera shop. I'm going back in time here. You would have a camera shop. You have a ladies' dress shop. You have a children's store, a menswear store, a shoe store, an automotive place, a grocery store, and I'm leaving out other little niche things that a sewing shop, a hobby shop, a toy store.
Mhm.
You would have all those stores, and they would all be owned by some local person, and each one of those local businesses would have taken out some advertising, and that's what paid for your local news. And now people are advertising online, and I can't blame them because you can target much better instead of like throwing it out at everybody.
Sure.
If you're selling baby stuff, you only reach people that you know have babies. You reach them online. There's a number of ways that you can target and get that. If you're taking out a newspaper ad, people who never had kids in their life, people whose kids are grown, you're paying for them to see the baby equipment ad too. So it makes sense, but that is why we cannot pay for local news anymore,
Mhm.
besides the internet.
Besides, yeah. Yeah, the internet's interesting in terms of delayed gratification, right? I mean, the internet has pretty successfully stripped most people of the ability to delay most gratifications, right? Like, you don't have
Uh,
to wait for anything. I mean, you don't have to wait to buy something. You don't have to wait to like, go out and look in a store. You don't have to wait long. I mean, if you use Amazon, right, you don't have to wait more than a couple hours to get something delivered to you. Like you
I
really
have
do,
to wait longer because I don't think that's available in smaller areas, but
yeah,
and I hate to admit I use Amazon, but honestly, I did not make this system. I'm
yeah,
not responsible for it. And all the a lot of times the stores that I would have gone to do not exist in my area anymore. There
yeah,
is no place in town that I could have bought that cast iron bread bake. Literally no place in my town, and probably not in the closest big town to me. They don't have a kitchenware store. I
mhm,
would have to drive probably to the Chicago area to get it, and
mhm,
I'm not going to drive to the Chicago
right.
area time I want to buy.
Yes, I mean, think of that access that that countries like Amazon have brought in, like, in terms of, again, instant gratification and getting things, returning things, like, and also just information, right? Access to information, like you were saying, it's so different than like the old news cycle, but all of these forms of obtaining and access are just so much different than they used to be, and none of them really involve delayed gratification.
Like, I would actually be fine with saying, like, "I'm gonna buy this," let's just say the cast iron bread baker.
Yeah,
I'm fine with saying, like, "I'm gonna get that next weekend when I drive into the nearest city." I would have been fine with doing that, and I used to do that, but I cannot do that anymore. So it's not that I was like, "I've gotta have this right away."
right.
But that's really the only way I can get it anymore.
Yeah. And I mean, I mean, I'll be honest, like I order things from Amazon and I like the fact that they show up at 8 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes you want,
I don't get that here. I think that must be a big city thing
yeah,
because it's usually a couple of days before I get anything.
sometimes they're like, do you want it delivered between 4 a.m. and 8 a.m.? And I'm like, do I? I don't know.
They've never asked me that question,
Yeah, you
but
get
I've
the,
noticed the delivery time is faster for my when I order something to send to my daughter and or grandkids,
mhm,
and they live in a Chicago suburb,
yeah,
it arrives much faster for them than it does for me.
yeah,
But I don't usually need it, I'm not looking for the same day. I don't need that bread baker today. I'm happy that I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get it, I think, on Tuesday.
yeah,
So it doesn't come as fast as you would hope,
yeah.
but I mean, this is not an emergency item.
Delayed gratification.
Yeah.
Wait till
I
2 days
have
for it.
less access to immediate gratification than if I lived in certain urban areas.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I do think, I mean, I think like we've lost a lot of, lost a lot of ability to say that delayed gratification is something good when we have instant access to so many things. And I do think the narratives have turned and have moved over to, um, right. It's about the self control and saying like, I'm not going to have screen time tonight, or I'm going to like put my phone down during dinner. There's a question. Do I have a feel for the people in my classes and their attitude toward delayed gratification? It's interesting because I do think a lot of my students are like a lot of people you see on Substack thinking about like, I'm sorry, I didn't do this over I wasn't online over the weekend. And they'll say things like that. And I'm kind of like, what's wrong with you? Like, why aren't you like, why aren't you doing things? And they'll be just like, oh, I don't answer emails on Saturday. And I'm like, wow. And I think that's more boundaries than delayed gratification, or maybe they're better at boundaries. I mean, they do expect to have I mean, they're, fully my students are like 20, 25-ish years old. You know, they assume that they're gonna have immediate access to, like, information, right? Um, you know, they're not gonna go into a law library and look up anything. They're never gonna know, like, what it's like. I didn't really even either. We're sort of like but, like, people remember going to libraries and looking up different things and trying to find cases, and, like, they'll never have to do that. So I think they just assume a lot of access that they've never known otherwise. But I think what they're good at is they're getting very good at boundaries.
You're getting very good at what?
Boundaries?
Oh, boundaries.
Yeah. Like, "Oh, I'm not gonna" like, a lot of them so, the last couple of years have been, like, a huge number of debates around, like, laptops in the classroom,
Mhm.
and lots of people there's all kinds of studies, and students learn better if they're not on their laptop, and so some people ban laptops, and I've never done that because, like, I feel like people are adults and they can choose if they wanna, like, online shop during my class or not. I've
Well, I
online
mean, they're paying for the
way
education if they don't wanna get everything they can out of it.
I mean, I've online shopped my way through many classes, so I'm not gonna, like, take away the pleasure from other people. But now you see more students who are actually, like, just, like, not bringing their laptops and writing notes by hand, and it's interesting to me. So I don't know if people are going back to an actual, like, delayed gratification or just the notion that they should be using screens less and sort of, like, slowing down in that sense and, like, not always on.
Obviously, I grew up without any screens at all,
Yeah,
and my kids, were the generation that started off without screens and then had to adopt screens when they were still pretty young.
yeah,
So and my grandkids, they cannot even imagine that people could have lived without screens,
yeah,
and it feels exactly the same way that I might have felt when I was a little kid if somebody had told me that they used to ride a horse.
right. You're like, "Oh, wow."
My
Yeah,
granddaughter could not believe that I did not have a microwave. Toward the very end of my childhood, we got one, but in
mhm,
my younger years, nobody had a microwave. They really didn't exist, and at first, they were very, very expensive, big and bulky,
yeah,
and microwaves you wanna talk about your delayed versus instant gratification,
right,
because microwave food is, in general, almost never as good as something that you would make and bake, but you can have it so fast. You can just take it out of the freezer, stick it in the microwave, and have it in no time at all. In
yeah,
fact, you're like, "Why is this taking so long? It's 3 minutes. Oh my god." I have to wait for this thing to be,
right.
ready to uh, I don't you think about it, take I love to think about the concept of somebody coming from, in history, popping into our time and being like, "What do you mean you take something out of this cold place and put it into this little box and it comes out hot?" If I wanted chicken, I had to go outside, catch a chicken, cut off its head, pluck it, scald it.
So I think this is interesting because I think this is an example of the fact that, like, a lot of things that we consider to be delayed gratification are just, like, the technology wasn't available and things have shifted away from delayed gratification because we have new technologies.
Everything in society, if you think about it, this just now struck me, it's all built so that you don't have to delay gratification. If you want it, man, you can have it right now.
Right? It's like all yours, you can have it. So I mean, a lot of it, a lot of what we think of as delayed gratification is a technology thing. I think a lot of the things that we call delayed gratification, maybe they are, but I think it's just different forms of discipline. I was thinking like another thing I looked, when I was looking around for delayed gratification things, people talked about like education is delayed gratification, right? Like
Mhm.
you invest in your education and you basically like, live as a student and don't earn and you put off gratification until you graduate. And I guess that's something that people still do, but I don't know if I consider that delayed gratification or not.
I always had the sense when I was in college that, the payoff would come later 'cause I always worked a lot when I was in college. I
Mhm.
sometimes cobbled together 3 and 4 jobs because you couldn't really get a full-time job usually. You'd get, like, a few hours at food service and a few hours working at this other I did alumni mailings, I did food service, I did stuff like that. I
Mhm.
would, like, bus tables, I worked on the press at the newspaper where I also,
Mhm.
wrote, but you didn't get paid a regular salary for writing, but you did get paid a regular salary for doing hot, dirty press work. So
Mhm.
I would cobble together all these different jobs. I had fast food jobs. I mean, I was always working. And I always told myself, like, it's gonna be worth it later. Like,
Yeah.
it's true that you are eating outdated food and scrape it off the mold. I mean, I really was poor in college. I literally would scrape off mold and eat stuff that
Yeah.
was outdated. I mean, uh, I can't believe some of the crap I did. I would not want my kids to live that way. But, I was poor. I didn't have any money. I couldn't just go to the grocery store. I had to find other ways to get food. And one of those things was always have a job at a restaurant or at food service so you can,
Mhm.
whatever shift you get enough food to last you the whole day.
Yeah.
And also my mom at that time, she had to work at a food brokerage company, and she gave me all the expired food that she would write up credits for,
Mhm.
and she would call on grocery store clients. So, like, I would sometimes get things like cases and cases and cases of cheese that had started to go moldy that you just had to cut the mold off. One memorable time I got, like, oh my god, 50 boxes of Steakums. I was so happy about that. And so, like, I would just make my meal. I had a lot of canned yams. One summer I lived on canned yams that had expired,
Yeah.
but I kept telling myself, "That's okay. When I get out of school, I'll have more money." And that ended up not being the truth at all. So
I think it's actually a problem right now. I mean, I think with generally with education, because people aren't seeing the value, right? And so it's like it's
no.
education's been sold to people as delayed gratification, right? You go and you're going to sacrifice some, whether it's in time or whether it's in, your quality of life or whatever it is, and it's gonna be worth it because you're gonna come out and you're gonna have a degree and you're gonna go, get a job and you're gonna make, a good living, you're gonna go buy a house and you're gonna do all these things, and, like, it's just not necessarily true anymore, and so, like, that's kind of the ultimate delayed gratification institutions that we have, and it's really not working for people.
And you would think I would learn, like, you went through a lot to get a degree, and you didn't. I was probably worse for most of my life. I was probably actually worse off. If I probably would have been better off if I just tried to find a good local job and worked there from high school. I probably would have been financially better off. But granted, a journalism degree was probably not. I mean, I went into it with my eyes wide open, knowing I wasn't going to make a lot of money. But I also did not think that the newspaper industry was going to implode. So I thought that I really trusted the deal. Like, if I work hard and do all the right things, it will pay off in the end. And that really didn't happen
Yeah.
for me. And it really didn't happen for a lot of people. This is not an unusual for
Yeah,
me.
I think it's becoming more clear, every day that, education doesn't provide the same results that it used to, and it's not necessarily education's fault. It's like, there's the economy in there, and how
Well,
people fare and what people do, but it's not working the way that it used to work for people. You know,
no, no. In
and all
fact, I think my dad, the high school graduate, ultimately has had less need for delayed gratification in his life than I have with a
Mhm.
bachelor's degree. And my daughter has a master's degree, and I'm not so sure she's going to be much better off, if at all, than I was.
Yeah.
So, I don't know about my grandkids. They're still young, but what are they going to have to like get like 3 PhDs just to afford to rent an
I
apartment?
tell you one thing, your earning potential goes down once you get the PhD. You should get a JD to make it go back up again. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what to advise my grandkids. Like, I would have told them, like, work hard, save your money. I'm not so sure
yeah, it's
maybe
interesting.
that's
This is like another kind of like very large form of delayed gratification. I was looking at like some wealth planning stuff, and they say like this is what you're supposed to do in your 20s and this is what you do in your 30s. And it is all working on the idea of delayed gratification that you're going to work hard, your 20s, 30s, you're going to work hard, you're going to keep getting promoted or you're going to keep like, like raising your income and you're going to keep investing. And then like you're going to make it, like you said, to 60 or 65 or whatever your magic number is, and all of this delayed gratification is going to absolutely pay off and you're going to have a great retirement and you're going to go on cruises and you're going to, annoy the locals in Barcelona on a cruise and you're going to, whatever you're going to do, you're going to play golf or you're going to do all the thing, garden, whatever you want to do in your retirement. And it's going to have been worth all of the years that you maybe enjoyed and maybe you didn't even enjoy the job that you were doing.
or maybe you worked so many hours that you couldn't enjoy your time off, but you kept telling yourself, "It's gonna pay off later. It's gonna pay off later." And not to sound crazy, but I think that, all my years of delayed gratification served a lot of other entities, but did
Mhm.
not serve me.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, all of that is based on the premise that first of all, you're going to be making living wage, that you're going to be working for companies that are going to give you benefits, right? Which is not necessarily at all the case now when we have people doing so much like cobbling together, right? A lot of jobs and also people, being independent contractors everywhere and not getting benefits. So that whole how you're supposed to live your life and plan for retirement and really delay all of your gratification is really premised on the workplace giving you certain benefits, right? And like you getting certain things and getting healthcare and not having to spend all your money on, those type of things that used to be more public goods.
And I think that that old system works really well for, I'm off the top of my head going to say maybe 30%, the top 30%. You could probably, we would all probably draw that line differently, but it's not working for the bottom half.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because again, like the bottom half is now in employment where, the wages have stagnated. You don't have the benefits you used to. You can't go and get a job like you used to and be able to think like I'll be here for 30 years and I'll keep getting
No.
a great cost of living raise and I'll be guaranteed health care and I'll be guaranteed a retirement package. And like you can't get those.
And in many cases, the grasshopper, or excuse me, the ant that you hire an ant, and the ant is then there for 10 years and knows the business inside and out, and everybody depends on that ant. And then they hire a grasshopper one day who has hopped from job to job. That
Yeah.
grasshopper is probably making more than that ant, maybe quite a bit more. And that is so crazy to me that it really is the case that if you want to get a raise, you probably have to change jobs. And
Mhm.
I can remember a former employer of mine, he should not have been having this conversation with me, but he was just bitching us up a storm one day because someone he had hired fairly recently had gone elsewhere to make more money. And
Mhm.
he said, these millennials, they never stop applying for jobs. I'm like, well, you probably could have hired, if you'd hired her for a little bit more money, she might have not hopped away so soon.
Yeah.
That little grasshopper might have stayed here.
Mm.
But the problem is you want ants, but you're paying like your grasshopper wages for ants. That's just not how it works anymore. And I mean, I think that the millennials are smart. That it's true. They don't have the same loyalty. They shouldn't. They watch their moms and dads and grandparents get completely screwed off. I mean, my kids watch me work my ass off for decades and
Mhm.
not have a whole lot to show for it. Um, I'm not saying that they aren't loyal employees. They both are
Yeah,
actually.
they just have they have a different view of the workplace because they have seen, like, work become more precarious and work become more unstable, and they've
Why
seen
would you kill yourself when you
work
see
taking away benefits from people, and, they don't have the same relationship that people had to a workplace 50, 60 years ago, and
I work so late back in the day
mm,
because I cared about the work and because I wanted to do a good job, blah, blah, blah. And so, if I needed to stay late and get the work done, I would stay late, get the work done, whether I was paid for it or not, because I cared about it being done right. And then I got a job, a different job, outside of my main field for a little while, and it was me and a lot of millennials, and man, you didn't wanna get between those people and the door at 5 o'clock, because when the clock struck 5, they were out the door like a shot, and I think, don't they need a few minutes to finish up whatever they're in the middle? It doesn't matter, they're out the door, and at first I felt kinda judgy about it, but later I came to realize they're not getting paid extra. They're not getting anything out of this. This would be a gift to the employer. It wouldn't serve them. They need to go gratify themselves right now. Go spend time with their family and friends or whatever it is they want to do. It's up to them. It's their free time. Why would I be so stupid as to continue working and not get paid for it? That was dumb. That
yeah,
that was like how I was raised. That was like the
right,
way things it used to be. You did that because you knew that it would be appreciated down the line, like more delayed gratification,
right.
and it didn't end up being true. And so, like, yeah, you should leave at 5, depending upon what kind of job and how you're rewarded. If it's not being made worth your while, then why would you give that away? You owe something to yourself.
Yeah, I think they're generations, like, kind of like Gen X is probably like the tilting point, but now, like, generations understand that the workplace, I mean, they fully understand that their employer is not gonna love you back, and they fully understand, like, that people, workers were keeping up their side of the bargain, but employees were not, and employers, want that type of dedication without actually, offering the same type of loyalty and the same type of benefits and the same type of pay and the same type of workplace security. And so, yeah, it's like, it's the same relationship you get for people in bad relationships, right? Like, he's just not that into you or she's just not into you. Like, move on.
Yeah,
You do.
stop throwing yourself at somebody that's never gonna value you.
Yeah.
In fact, if you're in a terrible relationship that you can see is not gonna go, if you want it to be to go somewhere, you wanna get married and have kids, for instance, is the classic thing. We only have so many years we can do that as women. If that's what we want, do not keep dating the guy that's not heading in that direction. Cut him loose and find somebody that's wanting the same thing you want, because you could easily spend your entire fertile window dating this guy who has no intention of marrying you and have kids. And but other guys do want that. Date the guy that does want that, if that's what you want. And by the same token, if the other person wants something else and you don't waste their time either. And so you've got a lot of women that are doing this delayed gratification, thinking they're going to get a ring. I'm like, just no, I mean, he's not a prize. Stop acting like he's some prize you're gonna win. You're the prize if anybody is. I just absolutely hate to see anybody, male or female, wasting years on a bad relationship thinking it's gonna get better later. Like, if it's not good in the beginning, it's not probably not gonna get better later on.
Yeah.
Uh, cut your losses and find a better relationship. Do not delay your gratification.
Totally true. That's actually we could do a whole 'nother one on that. We're kind of at times. I just want any last thoughts, any last words on delayed gratification? You're gonna go out and buy something right now, or you're gonna
I've had my splurges, now I need to be careful, but I guess that's the thing is, like, no,
when is your
that is
cast
a
iron
realistic
pan coming?
splurge. What?
When is your cast iron pan coming?
Tuesday. It's a little bit of a delayed gratification, but, I think you have to kind of know, like, what is the reasonable splurge? Um, at what point are you being smart about it and not being smart? If you've got lots and lots of money to spend, then you don't have to delay your gratification as much. You can make some more choices. If you're going to have trouble paying your power bill, don't go get a tattoo. Delay that gratification. But if you want to have a tattoo and you've got plenty of money to do it, then get the tattoo.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
Sam says Michelle's book. Michelle's book. Yeah, go buy Michelle's book.
yeah.
Yeah, that's, making choices. I see the same thing about everything, delayed gratification. Like, just be suspicious, right? When people ask you to delay your gratification, like, why are they asking you that? What are they getting out of your delay? And always be suspicious. It's my it's my lived by motto, especially about institutions who ask you to do things. So like I said, some people use and institutions use delayed gratification as a form of discipline. So always
It
be
also is a way of making you not look out for your own best interests. And I can think of a million times in my life that I have not looked out for my own best interests. And I was convinced at the time that it was going to be for some greater purpose.
Mhm.
Really, I was just benefiting some institution or employer
Yeah.
when I should have been thinking more about myself. I should have been a more selfish person in many different ways.
Yeah, so sometimes delay might be great, but also always, like, try to figure out who's benefiting from your delay, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And if
Alright.
it's someone who, don't do it. But if it is you, then do it. I guess I'm not trying to preach selfishness, but also you can take selflessness and sacrifice way too far.
Preaching awareness, right? Like,
Yeah.
deconstructing people's motives and the motives of organizations, and they might be good, they might not. So
Yeah.
read closely, right?
But my goal, my thing I'm living by right now is less ant, more grasshopper.
Okay. All right. Well, we're all supporting you in that. All right. Well, thank you
I
for joining us. Thanks for like taking time.
I will post this as soon as Substack has done its processing thing, and I would love to hear some more. I would love to hear from especially women my age. Like, do you feel like you did a little bit too much anting? And if so, go do some grasshoppering.
I'll try to
Bye.
now. Okay. Bye. Everybody have a great
Bye.
of your day.